already, we'll just keep an eye on letting people in. I think we'll just get started right away and not, you know, I'm sure you're all eager to get to lunch at 1 o'clock on time. So we'll just get started straight away. So first of all, hello everyone. Welcome to the CICM webinar on climbing the credit career ladder, which is quite the tongue twister. Today we are joined by 3 guests who I'll be talking to about the credit management career. First of all, thank you to all 3 of you for joining us today. I think now is the perfect time to pass over to our first speaker, Sam. Can you sort of introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, please?
Hi everyone, so my name's Samuel Johnson and I'm a Customer Advisor Advanced United Utilities. I started my apprenticeship in September 2021 and I then completed that in December 2022 and I'm a full-time employee at UU and I'm a Customer Advisor Advanced.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Sam. We'll go straight next to Laura. Can you introduce who you are and what you do?
Hi, thanks Tom. So yeah, my name's Laura. I am the head of collections and sales at Credit Limits International in Kent. I sat my qualifications 4 years ago. And yeah, it's just been amazing since then. I head up, like I said, the collections department and various other departments. So really looking forward to doing the call with you guys.
Brilliant. And last not least, saving the best, I think we could all say, Mr. John Kane. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
I think I'm John Kane from that introduction, Tom. Yeah, morning everyone. John Kane. I'm the head of Hub Operational Finance for Inchcape Shipping Company, based here in the UK, but I manage 2 hubs out of London and Mumbai. Been in credit management for about 30 years now. I know I don't look that old, but yeah, love my professional body and hopefully we'll share some of my experiences a little bit later with you.
Brilliant, awesome. So our first speaker, who we introduced first, is Sam. I've got a few questions for you, Sam. First of all, I think it's quite common all of us to hear about falling into credit management. So my question is to you, how did you hear about credit management? Was it something that you knew you sort of wanted to do straight away after school, or was it, and what route was it that you took to get into credit management?
So a bit of story for myself. So it's just a personal perspective. My passion as a youngster was always to do with sport and business. So just as in school, I decided to study business studies and sport. And in 6th form, I decided to further that by doing BTEC sport at A-levels. And then it came to a point when I finished my A-levels it was May 2021. I didn't really want to go to university as I wanted to earn and learn at the same time, but I did want to further my education and still gain some qualifications. So I thought an apprenticeship would benefit me the most. And then I sort of fell into the right path, and I'm a massive believer that everything happens for a reason. And by saying that, I was a bit unsure when it came to May 2021 what I wanted to do. Did I want to go to university, which was a no. So I looked for an apprenticeship, and then I came across the one at United Utilities, and it's obviously benefited me massively. I have a massive interest in business, and it's worked quite well because I like building rapport with people as well. I like speaking to people, as daft as it sounds, and it's something that's worked well for myself. So I would say I sort of fell into it, which is quite fortunate for myself as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I can sort of relate to you with that apprenticeship route. There is something that you sort of see and you know that if you don't want uni, that is a perfect opportunity, isn't it? So absolutely, I can agree. So a little bit more about that then. So how was that apprenticeship process? What did you sort of need to do in order to reach that final stage, getting to complete it and things like that, or the journey as a whole? And who supported you during your apprenticeship?
So just in terms of when I started my apprenticeship, I was 18 years of age. And as an 18-year-old lad, I was probably naive in terms of starting a full-time job. I wasn't maybe mature enough, some would say, to come in here and be a full-time employee and work towards my goal. But this changed instantly. As soon as I was in here over the first couple of months, I was ready to learn. I was motivated to achieve. And as a whole, it was more the CICM, Kaplan, United Utilities, all different people within the business and externally who supported me throughout. I mean, the process itself was quite smooth. I mean, I've done things internally and externally, but from a UU perspective, we came in and we did some training in the first few months, and then we were placed within the different teams within the department so we could learn more about the company and department. And then I think it was so I started in September 2021. Probably about February 2022, I got put on my full-time team. And this was a team where I was thriving. I was cash collecting, which was quite good, and I was building rapport with customers. So I was doing quite well at both things. But in terms of people within the company, I mean, my team leader was a massive support for myself and other managers within the department. But also something that isn't talked about enough, I'd say, is a mentor within UU. So I approached a colleague within United Utilities who was not in my department. He was in a human resources department, and asked him to mentor me throughout my journey. And this was obviously something that supported me massively, because it's someone who's internal within UU, but also not someone in your department.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said about actually learning from the other departments, going into there, doing different things, I think that's also great advice to people that are just looking at apprenticeships, looking at getting into a role. It's learning what everyone in the business does and how you fit into that. I think that's actually a great way of saying how you sort of learned from that experience. So I think that's a great point. I mean, it must have worked really well, obviously, because you have a few awards to your name now, which is absolutely amazing. I'm sure everyone sort of joined the call going, oh, I'm pretty sure you won the British Credit Awards there. So could you tell me a bit about what they were and what they sort of meant to you? Is there any particular achievements that stand out to you where you went, oh yeah, that was a massive contributor to earning that reward?
Yeah, so in terms of, like I said, so in terms of the process, so the first award the application was put in for was the Apprentice of the Year award. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't confident at all putting the application in. It was a conversation with me and my mentor had. I think it was probably in June 2022 it was, and my mentor, we discussed all the achievements that I've done so far in the year, and it was something that could be worth doing. So I just thought, right, I've got nothing to lose here. So I put my application in for Apprentice of the Year, and at that point you go to the regional awards if you were to be successful, and I was successfully entered into the regional awards, and it was me versus someone else at that point, and then I was successfully rewarded Apprentice of the Year for the Northwest. And I thought, even at that point, that is a massive achievement for myself. Even if I don't go anywhere into the national awards, I'm fine. I've won the Northwest Awards. Yeah. But then every winner from the regional awards gets to go to the national stage, and it was a great day out. It was a great night out with friends and family and colleagues from United Utilities. I met some great people at awards. But then to win the actual National Apprentice of the Year awards, it was something massive for myself. To be rewarded against all of apprentices within the United Kingdom is something massive for myself. And then another award, which, not to go on too much about awards, but the CICM Rising Star Award. That was something massive for myself, because it's not just an apprentice award. It's a new industry that I've came into. I've not had much, obviously I've not got a credit history really. I've done business studies at school. That was as far as it's gone. But to win that award shows I've had an impact within the CICM. So it's just something to be proud of again. So I mean, the two awards I'm proud of most will definitely be the Apprentice of the Year awards for Britain, because that's something massive. Obviously, it was against the whole of apprentices within England and Britain, but also the Rising Star Award, because it's something I've had a background in. It's something I've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, was there anything sort of in that entry where you sort of went, building that and thinking, right, I'm gonna enter for this award, and here's my best work? Was there anything, especially I'm thinking more of like a school leaver perspective, about the role where you sort of went, that was an outstanding piece of work I did? And leaving school, what would you say to that sort of person and the work that you do that contribute to that?
I mean, in terms of contribution to the awards, I'd say it's just my day-to-day role and going above and beyond in that. So like I'm my biggest critic at that point as well, but I do like to set myself targets for each week, each month, and them targets are realistic, but they've also got to be something I can work towards. So that's something I do massively, set targets. And one of my targets, I think it was again in probably February, March 2022, I'm not to brag again here, but I was extraordinary with my cash collection, and that was something massive. As an apprentice, it was above everything else. I was also coming as above as a normal full-time employee does, when I've had not as much training and not much experience as everyone else. In terms of school leavers, one thing I would definitely reinforce would be do something you're passionate about. Like most of my friends went to university, and I was as such the odd one out who wasn't going to university, but it wasn't for me. I knew I wouldn't enjoy going to university. So I thought I'll do something I'm passionate about, because I know for myself, if I'm passionate about something, I'll have my full effort and full motivation to do so. And like I said, it's worked massively for myself at this point.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliant advice for school leavers, to be fair. And by the sound of it, you're very target driven. And I think that's also a massive part about the career for people that are looking to get into it. So absolutely. Thank you very much, Sam. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. Let me just check. I don't think there is. We're lucky. You're lucky. You escaped this time. Okay, so next up, that brings up Laura. Thank you very much again for joining us today, Laura. We'll start off with a very similar question. How did you get into credit management and collections industry?
So I went to university and I didn't do the apprentice route. So I got my degree in business studies in 2013. And I then became a project manager for Lego, and my career just I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't have that job satisfaction. It wasn't rewarding. And I was just looking for new jobs, and the debt collection role that I previously was involved with was advertised, and I thought, you know, the skills that I've got can be they're very transferable, and I just thought, you know, it's something new, it's an industry that I'm really not aware of, let's just do it. So I did, and yeah, the rest is history.
I think you just brought up one of our buzzwords there that we use at HQ as well, as transferable skills, and it's just finding what you're good at and how you can apply that. So I think that's yeah sounds brilliant. So I guess then, so you've transferred those skills, you've got that job. How did you actually discover CICM, and where did we come into that, and what was the driving force? Obviously, you've got your MCICM grad, so what was the driving force to reach that qualification? And what does it obviously mean? You're on the education committee and Credit Academy board, so what does that mean for you, and why are you on it, I suppose?
Yeah, no, so the CICM was introduced fairly quickly to me, actually. There's quite a few colleagues within my company that have got the credentials, sat the qualification. So I spoke to my ND and said, you know, it's something that I would like to do in terms of training and skills, researched what I wanted to do, contacted the CICM, and went in with my level 3 and then on to my level 5. For me, I wanted to sit the exams. There was quite a few reasons, really, but I wanted to sit the exams to obviously enhance my knowledge and skills, and be a part of a like-minded community, study network, and obviously to enhance my own development. Now, in regards to my credentials, I really value my credentials. Not only did I obviously work so hard to obtain them, but the opportunities that have come, that are there and have come for me since fully qualifying, have genuinely been amazing. I feel far more confident in making decisions, heading up projects, handling vulnerable situations, and knowing that they are also globally recognised fills me with confidence and pride, and knowing that our institution really puts members' knowledge first. It really is at the forefront of everything we do. Ensuring that we obviously remain compliant in an ever-changing industry and following best practice in a somewhat often criticised industry as well. But in regards to the boards as well, I've been on the boards now for 2 years. I absolutely love being a part of them. We meet twice a year, and being a part of the decision making and overseeing the quality and consistency of the education is great. It really is. Understanding firsthand the issues that students may raise, or areas which have been identified for improvement as well, enables us to act on a timely matter to you know, correct or handle them. So, you know, upholding our professional standards really is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, that was another class answer when it comes to professional development, and actually getting that confidence. I for one can actually relate to sort of how getting a qualification can make you sort of think outside the box, be really confident in what you're doing because you've got that qualification. So absolutely, I can 100% get that. And it sort of brings on the topic of professional development, obviously. So you've got the qualification, you've got your letters, you're very confident, and I think a lot of people actually might struggle with the challenge of maybe finding the time to actually, you know, continue doing some of that. And I guess it's kind of just what your 2 cents would be, just to those people that maybe think, well, to be fair, all these people are on a call right now doing that. So to be fair, but it's also finding that time and having that sort of, how do you find time to do your professional development?
Yeah, so firstly, I am a very determined person, and I wanted to achieve my MCI status before I was 30. I think I obtained it at 27, maybe 28. In terms of barriers, I have and had a lot. So not only am I a mum to 3 amazing boys, I was also caring for my late father, and obviously holding down a full-time job. So I quickly learned that to ensure that I was giving the best of myself to all those areas in my life, I needed something that I could escape to, or I needed something that was just for me. And studying really did become my escape. It became my coping mechanism in the chaos that was my life. I would schedule my nights into hour blocks. I chose study methods that I knew that I would be able to commit to, evening classes, things like that. One of my tutors I've seen is on this call. Hi, Kevin. He was amazing, as were my other tutors, in you know, being able to work with me at a time that worked for them, but also really did work for me, especially with the children. You're absolutely right though, time is a commodity that we all wish we had more of, but I'm also a believer that if you do want something so much, nothing will hold you back. There will always be barriers, there will always be hurdles, but you really just need to look past it step by step, day by day, and there will always be a different path to take with the hurdle that is in front of you. So break it down, sit module by module, and if you really don't feel that you are ready for an upcoming exam or an upcoming essay submission, just sit the next one. You know, it's no rush. You just want to ensure that you are going to succeed. So don't rush anything. That would be my piece of advice.
I think that was actually a really inspiring answer. Actually, I've never actually heard anyone say there is sort of an escape. That's actually really interesting. And also, I can also relate to that. I think that is also a very good way to sort of think that is for me. That's what I do the best, obviously. And that's what I want to progress to. So that's actually a really interesting answer. Thank you very much. So again, so sort of that professional development, how do you think that has enhanced your career?
Wow. So obviously I sit on the boards, which, like I said, is incredible. But I started off working in collections, B2B and B2C, and I still work in collections. It's something that I'm not willing to let go of, because that is where my passion is. I absolutely love how rewarding and challenging it is. But I also head up compliance, vulnerability, business development and sales. So I am now involved in most key areas of my company. And obviously that is really thanks to the skills and the knowledge that I have learned. Every day is so different and very rewarding. And being a part of a community that just everyone, I feel like this industry, everyone just wants everyone to succeed. The people that surround me, you know, when I go to my meetings and I sit down with Kevin or Glenn and I just listen to, they've been in the industry a lot longer than me, and when I listen to the information and the guidance that they give, that's what I love, because no one is out against anybody. Everyone is willing to help you. So for me, the opportunities that have come from it have just been incredible.
Absolutely, and I think that's what it is here, isn't it? Is that sort of the community, everyone is here to progress the profession, progress themselves. And I think, again, a great answer. We spoke before about young people and specifically women in credit and things like that. What would you say to that audience who maybe don't know about the career or haven't really thought about it, or maybe aren't even aware what options are available to them? What do you sort of want to say to that?
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, most people generally do fall into credit management. So many leave school at 18 with no idea what they're going to do. And like Sam said earlier, it is absolutely vital that you find something that you are so passionate about. If you're going to sit there doing a job for the rest of your life, you really need to do a job that you love. And I think the rollout of the apprenticeships as well, whether it be from the CICM or other bodies, that not only enables young people to be a part of an ever-changing industry, but like I touched on before, it's an institution that genuinely want people to succeed. And I do think that there is a misconception that credit is a man's world, and it is so great to see CSA, CICM making headway in eroding such misconception by highlighting professionalism within DCAs or other credit companies. Now, watching many young and female individuals start their credit career over the last few years has been very rewarding. And I would also like to touch on as well, a few years back, I was at a conference in Newcastle, and there were two, I think they were 16 at the time, but there were two young girls there, and I was on my own up there, and I just sort of felt like I needed to take them under my wing a bit. So for the few days that we were up there, I spent time with these girls, and I added them on LinkedIn. I've not spoken to them in years, but I noticed there was a name on here that rung bells with me, and I messaged her. And I do just want to say that this is amazing, but there was a girl called Rihanna that I met at Newcastle, and she's now ACICM, and she passed in February, and it genuinely has made me so happy seeing that, because A, she's a woman and we rock, and B, she was so young that when I met her, I think she'd literally left school in the July, sorry, and she was at her first conference in the September. You know, that's thrown in the deep end massively. So I do just want to say, like, it is so amazing seeing young people, years on, seeing where they're at. Like, it's really made me happy. So Well done,
Absolutely.
Rihanna.
I mean, it's probably one of those things that she probably remembers exactly what you did for her as well. You know, it's when you're at that age, it's massively impressionable to remember things like that. So absolutely. Wow, what a brilliant answer to sort of round up on Laura there. That's a great story to hear. You've also escaped any questions in the chat. So wow, honestly. But no, that's okay. I mean, if there are any questions, we'll come to back at the end. If there are any, just leave them in the chat and we'll pick them up. Our last speaker today is John Kane. But before we do ask John a couple of questions, there should be, if I just grab it for you now, I'm just going to drop a link in there in the chat now where you can just leave some advice on your CICM membership, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd see less of, and things like that. We're always listening to that sort of thing. So if there's a topic that you want us to discuss in a particular way, whether it be a resource, webinar, podcast, I'm doing the whole spiel right now, but seriously though, if there is anything that you want to put in there, we're listening to it, we're completely addressing it, just let us know through that link. Now that I've got my little plug out of the way, thank you for joining us today, John. Let's ask a very familiar question that we've been asking throughout this whole thing. How did you get into credit management and collections?
Stumbled into it. Back in the day, credit wasn't really a career choice that you heard about at school or at college. And I decided to go and get a job at a very junior level in a post room for a concrete company, of all things, in South Harrow. And I was the post boy. So my job was darting around this building, collecting posts, delivering posts, chatting away to everyone who I could chat to. And it was brilliant because I learned a little bit about every department. And it was the credit department that actually had the most energy coming out of it. And I established some good relationships there with some people. And I said, what do you guys do? You have an awful lot of posts. And I also had a machine that I used to do their invoicing with. You wouldn't believe this machine. I was in a room 10 foot by 5. This machine took up about 9 by 4, and you would automatically feed the invoices. So I said one day to this lady, I said, what would you do with all these invoices? And she just explained the whole cash cycle to me. Well, all right, that makes sense. And spent more and more time with them. And I thought, do you know what? I heard them on the phone. I thought I could do that. And I said to this particular lady one day, look, if you ever want, if you're ever advertising for a new role, I'm happy to give it a go. I wasn't totally impressed with the other departments. They were all a little bit boring. There wasn't that energy. But with credit, there was definitely an energy in there. And I could sit that whole thing about working to a monthly target. And you knew that the last week of the month, you could hardly go in that room because people were flying around. And I thought, yeah, I fancy this. And I got a break in there. And I got a very junior role, which I really, really enjoyed, and very much learned the basics of credit in a very short period of time, chasing builders who were buying concrete, basically. So that's how I got into it.
Awesome. That's quite interesting to hear that you sort of was a schmoozer. You were running around finding out everything in different departments, a bit similar to how Sam did it, but you sort of run around the place. No, that's brilliant. I mean, it's a different world out there for people that are looking into getting into careers, especially like school leavers. I know at CICM, we're definitely looking into what we can say to school leavers about a career in credit. And I think I'm quite interested to hear what you would say to school leavers about credit management, or people that are probably thinking about the career.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was quite interested to listen to Laura and to Sam, and Sam talked about working with people, and Laura talked about sort of following your passion, etc. And I completely endorse that. I see, for me, it's all about relationships and collaboration. That's what credit's all about. And I'm a talker. I love to talk to people. So if it's all day on the phone chasing money, if it's dealing with a sales department over queries, I'm up for that. So, and as I've got more experience in credit, I love the whole idea of collaborating with my teammates in my company to make things better. So my advice would be, it's got to be your passion. It's got to be something that's going to get you out of bed in the morning and get the juices running. So if you like an environment where you've got targets to hit, you've got to come at things from a different angle. You can't deal with every problem the same. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to be bit of a detective at times. You've got to be a bit of bit of a counselor, you've got to use leverage, you've got to use charm, you've got to be a good communicator. If you can tick a lot of those off, then credit, you might just find what you want. It's a challenging environment, but it's a really nice industry to work in. I totally agree with what Laura said. There's a real camaraderie around people in credit, and every time we get together in whatever forum it is, everyone's looking out for each other. People are falling over each other to help with advice and share experience, etc. So it's a very, very, it's a good industry, and it's an industry that's always going to be here, right? Because people don't like paying the bills, and it's a skill to not just collect the cash, but also to manage the risk assessment and set up the right tools and systems and processes in order to support that, and also to support your business. So, this is a career for life, and the experiences that you pick up on the way make you better and bigger and stronger. And then what you'll find, and I've no doubt that Samuel and Laura will find, as they go through their career, they'll be influencing lots of people as they lead teams and departments, etc. So remember, cash is number one in every business. Revenue, all these lovely things that happen, they're not materialized until it turns into cash. And when people ask me what the credit's all about, I explain it quite simply, but it's really not a simple process. And people that are successful in credit and collections, they're not successful because they're lucky or they've got a client base that pays very quickly. There's a lot of planning, a lot of strategic planning that goes into managing a debtor's portfolio, and I'm very proud of that. And it's so nice to hear these youngsters like Sam and Laura coming through, so articulate, so buzzing and up for their roles. They're certainly a lot more articulate than me and my generation were when we stumbled into credit back in the 80s.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, especially from the people that I've talked to, it is like a strategy of people, isn't it? You've got to know your people, you've got to know how to handle that. It's always going to be different as well. You don't really know how someone's going to act, knowing your customer and things like that. So absolutely, I think that's probably one skill that I'd tell school leavers myself, is that if you're a people person, if you're interested in people generally, like that, almost like that psychology, if you took it at school and things like that, that's how I'd sort of phrase learning about people and things like that in credit. So yeah, no, absolutely, I'd completely agree. When you look back on your career, what are some highlights or specific moments that you think particularly stand out and you're most proud of them?
I think first and foremost, I worked for a venture capitalist company, a very aggressive venture capitalist company, who came and took over a company I was working at when I was quite a junior credit controller. And they bought this company out, and they invited me to go along and head their credit. And it was my first sort of managerial role. And it was a broken down business that was failing. And we had a 3 to 5 year strategy to build the business up, and obviously getting the cash in the right way was the first thing. And then these VCs, they wanted to sell it on and realize their expectations. And it was very, very successful. And I remember having to really hit the ground running, because in addition to the collections, they also gave me accounts payable and VAT and tax, and they really, really stretched me. And I remember it was a very, very challenging, difficult, but very successful few years. And we sold the business sort of 5 years later, and we realized the shareholders' expectations. And then after a year break, they then went and bought another company, and we did the same thing. And then they did the same thing. So I had 3 efforts with this company, and I liken it almost to being in the army. It was the most unbelievably chaotic and hard-working period of my life that covered about 15 years. And then when I came out of those VC-led ventures and went back to what I would call a normal 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, it was like being on Civvy Street. But I do think, I left my mark, and I built my CV and experience, I think, and I learned an awful lot from some very clever people. But the bottom line was all about collaboration, relationships, because if they were strong, then I was successful. And it was that energy of having to get round and problem solve with people every day and plan new things every day and try and see what was around the corner and try and mitigate risk. You know, all these sort of core skills that make up people in credit and collections. That's what stood me in good stead. So very, very proud of that. Very, very proud of working for my professional body for a year. I've been out for about a year now, but that year I did working up at the Watermill, South Luffenham. Leaves a very warm place in my heart. And doing my exams all those years ago and getting the letters after my name and, you know, sending my CV out and going for interview as an AICM or an MTICM. Very, you know, I'm very, very, very proud of that. But I think also, and I see Karen Tufts is on the call. Karen's from a very similar generation to me. You know, we've seen credit evolve over the last 30 years. It's gone from, you know, and I'm not joking here, handwritten ledgers that we reconcile at the end of the month to these fantastic systems with bells and whistles now that that organize the work. I wouldn't say they do the job. A lot of people that own these systems would say it doesn't do the job, because you've got to have the human interaction and, you know, you've got to take different routes sometimes. But to see the enhancement of systems and tech has been incredible, and keeping up with that has been very exciting. And I've done quite a few implementations of those, and they've always left good results behind them. You know, we talk about DSO or CCT, however you dress it up, and bad debt write-offs. These are the things that us credit guys, you know, we nail our colours to the mast here. That's what we live and die, and we're measured on. So yeah, I guess when I look back, I'm very proud of how I've left my various employments in terms of cash collection and those KPIs. And of course, the staff that you developed along the way, like Laura said, you know, she's bursting with pride when she told us a story about, you know, Rihanna a few minutes ago. Still being in touch with these people that I might have managed as juniors and have maybe coaxed into starting their professional development with their professional body, and now seeing them as established credit professionals and managers and managing their own teams is massively pride fulfilling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think each step of that journey as well, like you say, it's all come to this point where you reach that top, you get that fellow status, don't you? I mean, what exactly does that grade mean, and what does it mean to you?
That's a really good question. But first of all, the process was I was very proud of, because you reach out to your former bosses and you're like, well, I'd really like to get my fellowship status, and is there any way you could sort of back up some of my experiences? And doing that and get it, and reaching out to people I haven't spoken to for a while and getting them to write such lovely glowing testimonials of my time for them, that was really, really quite special. But yeah, being a fellow is just, I'm so proud. You know how proud of my professional body, full step, but to be a fellow, which I got last year, and become part of that community. A fellow, I went to the fellows lunch last year for the first time, and for me, that's always been, you know, a community that is far, far away from me, but to be recognised in that crowd, and have your contribution to the industry recognised, it is massive, and it makes you that network of like-minded people. It's brilliant recognition of your skills and your experience. Looks great on a CV, and you still, even when you're a fellow, you still have all the benefits of being part of your professional body. So, you know, I'm on the Knowledge Hub every other day. I'm reading my magazine to find out what's going on around the world and around all the different industries. So yeah, it's basically you're part, going back to the whole communication and relationships thing. I'm part of a nice club now, a nice community.
Absolutely. I mean, you've made a good point there about, you know, it's that sort of similar to what Laura said, and I suppose it's same with Sam, is that confidence once you've got that, and to know that, yeah, you know, people have backed your skills are backed by those letters, and by being part of this body, it is that's what it's all for. That's what you've worked to gain. So it's absolutely, I don't think I could have answered that question any better myself.
But also, when you look at your other fellow, I mean, I think we've got Kevin Artlott on the call, who's a guy that I hold right up here in my esteem from my time at CICM. You know, the feedback from the students of his fantastic coaching and teaching, you know, to be in the same club as people like that is that's quite special.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. It's a special club, isn't it? That's what it's all about. So completely.
Secret handshakes, Tom.
You know, yeah, we do. We all need secret handshakes. That's it. So I mean, we sort of talked about before, like your most proud moment, and I suppose it kind of ties into what one of your biggest challenges as well is that almost army force that you were mentioning earlier. But is there any other challenges that you maybe look back on your career that you've overcome, or any moments that you think, oh, that's completely changed the way I do that completely, sort of anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to the venture capitalists taking over the business, I basically had to grow up overnight and go from being a credit controller to being responsible for a £15 million ledger and everything that went with that. I had no manager to hide behind. And then they dumped, like I said, AP and tax and this stuff on me and VAT. And I just went and I spoke to lots of people who sort of cover those areas and, oh, how does AP work? How does VAT work? Spoke to a load of people, got the gist of it, put some controls in place. But again, you're just aware that you're responsible for, and you're outside of your comfort zone. You're dealing with things that have a big cash impact, and you're not necessarily an expert. On credit, I was fine. I was going through my exams. I was studying. I was bouncing off all the people I studied with at the college. So that was great. And that's another great little community that I'm sure people hopefully still do today, Sam. I hope that, you know, the people that you did your apprenticeship with, I hope that you're still in communication with them today, and you will be for years. You'll build these great relationships. But yeah, that was tough. We've had a few economic crises over the years, and you know, FDs panic. And I've been in businesses where, you know, we're not paying anyone, or we're only paying 50% of what we pay out every month. And that's when, you know, good credit leaders had to really start thinking on their feet. And I think that's where the old credit versus AP disappeared. I think as a credit industry, I think we learned overnight, we've got to develop relationships with these people. We've got to have our check at the top of the pile. If they can only pay 50% out, we need to make sure that we're in that 50%. So it was about relationships. It was about KYC on a serious level, understanding what's going on. I used to try and visit every car. We had checks in those days, Tom. You won't know much about them. But I used to go and collect checks whenever I could, because just standing in the reception or meeting the bought ledger manager or whatever just gave you a flavour of how things were at the company, and the red flags would rear up then. So those economic crises were very, very testing, and the pressure that we were put under as credit managers was enormous. It was basically, as we know, cash is the lifeblood of a business. If you haven't got cash, you're dead. So a lot of pressure, but I think we all stepped up and embraced it and enjoyed it. COVID was another massive issue for us, you know, managing teams that work from home, keeping that not just the performance going, but keeping an eye on your people, making sure that they were okay, because we're all different and we all reacted differently to COVID. So yeah, I think, and I've worked in various industries that have had hard time, but you know, they've also been, although they might have been very challenging times, they're the best times, because they create an energy, because you're having to think a bit different, and you're having to think, right, how do we get ahead of our competitors here? So one example was, you know, shipping got hit massively during COVID, and I remember the cruise companies wrote to us and said, we're not paying any money out. And I took it upon myself to do a real deep dive on the reserves that these cruise companies had, so that I could bash away their excuse of not paying because they didn't have cash, because they did. They have billions sitting as reserves. And the shipping company I worked for at the time, we got all our debt paid. and it was tens and tens of millions. And I know of other shipping companies that didn't, because they just accepted the letter and thought, well, we'll wait our time and we don't upset them too much, because when the cruise ships start cruising again, you know, they'll remember. So yeah, the times that you're challenged are the times that you have to step up and earn your corn as credit people. But they're the best of times.
I was going to say, absolutely. I think they're probably the times that you learn the most from, and it completely changes the way things, and also looking back on all the professional development that you've probably done that has contributed to that and things like that, just to sort of get my little bit of professional development plug in there for you. But no, absolutely. I still completely agree with what you said there. It's all about the people, and it's all about knowing your customer and things like that. So completely agree. That rounds up my questions for you, John. So you've survived me. And again, no questions in the chat. So clearly you've all done such a good job that everyone's happy with what you've said. So absolutely. I mean, that rounds up what we've got done today. So I'll let everyone obviously go to lunch. Thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you again for our speakers. If there's any content or anything like that, check our upcoming events that you might be interested in. And this recording will follow this event as well. So thank you again, everybody. It's been great. And I'll catch you all on the next one. Okay, so thank you very much,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.